Hey there, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. I'm super excited today. We are going to talk about all things markers, acrylic markers to be exact. I was preparing for today's video and realized that I have way too many acrylic markers. This isn't even all of them, but I've used them in lots of different ways, but not for an entire painting. I'd say painting because they're acrylic markers. So that's what we're going to do today. Usually I will use them on top of other drawings. In the past, when I've used acrylic markers, it was usually along with other mediums, not just acrylic markers by themselves. So I'm going to show you an example. This I did, I've actually got a finish on it just to protect it, but I used acrylic paint, but also acrylic markers. And Posca is what I kind of did for the outline, and I like to add more details and stuff with those. But I haven't actually completed an entire drawing just with the marker. So I thought we could try that out together while we discuss all things acrylic markers. So the ones I have out here are Posca pens, regular and glitter. And then these are called Sim-Tap acrylic markers. They have a brush nib, and instead of starting them by pushing down like you push in the nib to get the paint going, you actually push here on the back, and that's what gets the paint going. I had two markers. I really do like these for the most part, but two markers, one came cracked and all the paint kind of leaked out. And then one, when I was trying to get it started, the little button like disappeared, so it's really hard to use it now. But overall, I think they're pretty nifty. I do like the more brush tip. And then these are just like acrylic markers. And then I got these. I was able to go to a Blick art store last weekend in Chicago, and they had these huge chisel tip, which I thought were pretty fun. So not that I obviously needed any, but I liked being able to use the big ones. And then this, I didn't really realize what it was. Oops, this one. I didn't really realize what it was when I got it. I thought it was just like the other ones. But I guess it's kind of like puffy paint. So I'll have to use that at some point, not today, but I think that could be kind of fun. I'm gonna put some of these off to the side. We're just gonna kind of talk about acrylic markers, pros and cons, and what they can be used for, and all that kind of jazz. So I'm gonna kind of reset real quick, and I will be right back. In order to save time, I went ahead and painted the background. And these are the markers that I used. I used a Posca, and I used different size nibs. So each marker brand usually comes with more than one size nib. Some of them, like this is a chisel. And then this is more rounded. And then this is like, it's more pointed. So these are the ones that I used for the bottom part, and then I just had all those different sizes out so I could get kind of in all the little nooks and crannies. And then this is the one that I used for the middle part here. Again, it's a brush. It was fine. I think because the background is black, it didn't really cover very well. I can still even see other places, but you can just kind of run. It's just like a regular marker. It's just acrylic. So, but I can see a couple little spots. I'm gonna put other things over this, so it'll be fine. And then this one is the one that I used for the top here. But one thing that is kind of fun, and I'll go ahead and show you. I'll just do it up here. Is you can treat acrylic markers just like acrylic paint, because that's exactly what's in there. It's just, in a marker form. So you can you always want to shake markers up with the lid on. If you shake it really, like you shake it like this, sorry for the noise, the paint can just like spray out. And then when you're preparing one of the markers, I will get one that I don't think I've started yet. So after you shake it up, you can see there's no paint, it's just the nib. You'll press gently, because if you push really hard, you're going to actually ruin the tip, so you don't want to do that. So I usually will give it a few pushes, and then it'll start to come out. And then you can just kind of adjust it. So I'll show you on here. If you push down too hard, it'll release too much acrylic. Now sometimes you can use that to your advantage. This was a big area, so I actually took a paintbrush and just kind of spread that around just like I would regular acrylic paint. But you want to be really careful when you're pushing with your pressure that you're not always pushing down really hard, because it will release more of that paint. I've done that and it can really mess things up. So be warned. A couple little side notes too. If you've been to my channel before, you know I love to work with watercolor. So when I'm working with any type of acrylic, I am not using my watercolor brushes. The acrylics will ruin those, and they're way too expensive for that. So I just have some kind of random brushes that I'm using right now that aren't my watercolor brushes. I want to talk to you about this surface. This is the cover of one of my sketchbooks, and I wanted to paint it anyway, so I thought, why not do it while having a video about it. I don't know what the covers are made out of, but in order to prep the cover for the acrylic paint, I think I probably could have went directly onto the cover. First thing I used, which I don't have sitting here, was clear gesso. Well, I ended up not liking that because it left kind of a rough surface, which I think would probably be fine, but I feel like if you're using too rough, it's just gonna mess the nibs up, so I didn't want to do that. So even though this is black anyways, I went ahead and put black gesso, and then that gave it a nice smooth, and it protects it starting point for me. So I'm glad that I did that. I'm gonna get started coloring and also tell you different facts and tips and tricks to using the acrylic markers. Again, I haven't really used them in this kind of format before. I thought it would be fun just to kind of try something different with them. So I'm gonna kind of learn as we go. But I think it should be fun. They're so vibrant, and there's a lot of different shades and colors that we can work with. I've had lots of different brands, because some brand, not one brand has all the colors, or one brand has this really cool color. And sometimes you can buy one marker. A lot of times you have to buy the whole set, which they'll come in small to large sets. Pros and cons to that is simply because if you use one marker a lot and it runs out of ink, you kind of have to buy the whole set again. So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind. Let's start with these leaves down here. These are like shorter than kind of the regular size. It was just a set that I got, but I like these because I do like the really kind of pointy nib that it has. I'm like all over the place today. I also wanted to tell you about when I drew this. I first used, it's basically like a chalk pencil. I drew it out, and if there's something I don't like, since I'm working on black, I could just erase it. I could brush it off or use a wet wipe or just some water and erase it. And then after I was happy with what I wanted to do, I went ahead and just used a Prismacolor white color pencil. That's permanent. Now the acrylic markers are opaque, so they will cover up any of the pencil markings anyway, but I just didn't want to smudge it as I was working. So other substrates that could be used with acrylic markers, you definitely want to have something that's like heavyweight and tends to be a little smoother, I think. And then having an acid-free paper is really nice, because it over time helps with fading. It helps it not to fade, and then it also helps with the paper yellowing over time. So But you can use cardstock, which is nice because it is really heavy duty. Now see, this is one of the pointy ones. So as I'm coloring it, it's hard to see. I know the lighting is tough. Turn that off for a second. You can see the little holes. That's why it's important, depending on the area that you're going to be coloring, you kind of want to choose accordingly as far as the size goes. So I think I picked that one. Let's see. Okay, this one's green as well. I'm gonna turn that other light back on just because it's too dim, I think. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch to a little bit larger nib. That way it fills in better. And working with acrylics, you usually work dark to light. So I'm kind of starting with some darker color, and then I'll kind of spruce it up, moving to light. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. Maybe that'll help. Okay. You can also use mixed media paper because that is also a more heavyweight and generally acid-free paper, so that would be a good option as well. Bristol board is a really sturdy kind of board and it doesn't warp, so it's another really good option. They literally make marker paper, so that would be also something that could be used. I've used Bristol paper. I don't think that I've ever used Bristol board. I've definitely used cardstock and mixed media paper. You can also use a canvas, just like a prepared canvas from the store. You can also use it on wood, plastic, rocks, metal. So it has acrylic markers have a lot of different options as far as what you can use them on, which it makes it pretty cool. I think they're really versatile, which is nice. Like I said, I just haven't practiced a lot with them in other ways besides just kind of whenever I'm doing mixed media. So I thought it'd be fun just to kind of create a nice, simple kind of drawing just to kind of get myself started and try something new. So I had mentioned that there are different nibs. I had shown you that. You want to, whenever you buy a pack, a lot of times they'll come with nibs that you can just change out. You would just pull this nib out and then pop another one in. And then sometimes you can pop it out and turn it around and use the other end, just because the nibs will get worn out over time. Also, depending on the surface that you're using, if it's really rough, like I said earlier, it can kind of break down the nib a little bit. So you just want to kind of be careful. But as you're working, if you feel like you need more, you just gotta, I'm gonna shake it off to the side here. Shake it up. Now you can push gently just to get some more of the paint out. You just don't want to push really hard or that's when disaster strikes. So there are different kinds of acrylic markers. There are water-based, which is what these are. I believe all of the acrylic markers I have are water-based. And then there are also oil-based and solvent-based. The water-based tend to be, I believe, like the most popular that people would use because they dry fairly quickly and they're really versatile. They clean up with water, which is nice. You know, if you're using an oil base, you'd have to use some kind of solvent like turpentine, I guess, or something like that. And they're also non-toxic, which is obviously nice. So they're safe for the kids or, you know, just for us as well. And then the oil-based, like I said, you have to use, you know, different kind of solvent to clean them up, basically. But they're also nice if you've ever worked with oil paints, which I really haven't. But I know they blend really beautifully, so that's you know, a plus. I definitely would like to get some just to kind of try them out. The oil-based markers are also highly pigmented and they're weather resistant. So you could use them for things outside or maybe things that are going to be, you know, more in the elements or something. And then the solvent-based, I guess I've never used those either, but they have like a really intense color saturation, but they're also used more for outside or like industrial applications. So again, I have not used those. I'm always interested in trying new products. I love the versatility of acrylic markers though. I really enjoy using them with my mixed media. Once I put a Mod Podge layer on, I guess I could have used Mod Podge just to get this. Sometimes my brain, you know. Anyway, the marker goes on like butter, and I love it. I use it quite a bit in that aspect. I learned most of my mixed media knowledge from an amazing artist by the name of Karen Campbell. She has fantastic classes and is a lot of fun. I'll leave her information in the description box if you want to check her out. She's definitely worth checking out. She has a awesome art school is what it's called. Offers tons and tons of classes. I mean, I hope that you'll come back and visit me, obviously, but she's fantastic, and I still take a lot of her classes. I really enjoy what she's got to offer for sure. So there's alcohol-based and water-based markers as well. The water-based, like I said, are what I'm using, and they're not permanent, which means you can reactivate them with water. They can also just be like scraped off. So if you were going to use them for, say, decorating like a ceramic mug, you would want to make sure that you used some sort of sealant or varnish. Probably, I don't know about a varnish on a cup or mug that you're going to use, but you would definitely want to, find a way to seal it if it's something that's going to be touched a lot or washed or something. They're not archival, which means that they will fade in time, especially if they're in the sun a lot. So when you seal them, all my acrylic work I seal with Mod Podge usually. I do have other amazing, Americana makes a great spray sealant that I really like. I'll use Mod Podge quite a bit, and then that seals that paint in so it's not affected by like UV rays from the sun and stuff. They do take a little longer to dry. That's why I kind of have to wait in between. Just like I said, it's just like acrylic paint you would get out of a tube or a little bottle or something. But that's nice too if you want to spread them around or mix them together. They also don't smell, which is nice. Although I do love the smell of the like fruity markers that they make. Lemon and orange, those are kind of fun. Alcohol based, they're permanent. Once you put it down, that's not really going anywhere. They are archival. They do dry faster than the water based, but they can have some fumes. So I always like to use 2 colors at least. And again, this is like a fun doodle drawing. This is actually the cover of a tarot journal, and I've been wanting to paint it or something for a long time, so I was like, hey, this would be a great time to use those acrylic markers. I'm a free drawer, free painter. I'm not getting all worked up if it's not perfect. I can, don't get me wrong. I do have plenty of paintings that I take a really long time and I'm painstakingly trying to make it perfect. No such thing, obviously. But when I'm trying something new, I'm literally just kind of figuring it out as I go. I've worked with lots of acrylic paint. See, I just pushed it so hard. Now I'm glad I could show you that. Oh, grief. So what I'm gonna do is take a brush and I'm actually gonna scoop that into here. Now, luckily, with acrylics being opaque, it's fixable, but not gonna be perfect for sure. And that's okay. And in hindsight, I probably should have colored these in with white first so they would stand up more. So I may actually, moving forward, kind of do that first. I think I've mentioned this before, but I have like a little hair dryer, little heat gun right next to me, and that's what I usually use whenever I need to dry something real quick. Okay, so this is completely dry, so I'm actually going to grab the blue that I had used already. I'm just gonna gently release some of that paint, and I'm able to just cover that up. So that is the nice part about acrylics, is that they are opaque, so you can color over any mistakes or accidents. Happy accidents is right. Okay, I'm gonna leave that alone for just a little bit. I'm gonna move on to the mushroom. And because the stems are gonna be lighter, I think I am gonna go ahead and go in with white first. Going in with white before your color, just when you're drawing on black, obviously, it just will help it stand out more, be a lot more vibrant. I should have done it with that from the very get-go, and I just didn't think about it. It's an extra step, obviously, but I think it's worth it in the long run. So this is just like the acrylic painter marker. It's generic. It doesn't even tell me the colors. I saved you from watching me paint all the white in because that was just gonna take forever. wish there was a larger marker of this color because it's going to take a while because it's really too small for this area. You don't want to do a lot of back and forth because you'll start kind of moving that paint around. You can scratch it. I try not to be too fussy, be kind of gentle. You can't even see. It's a very, very light color. All markers are not created equal. Can't say that I love this marker. Seems kind of hard to get the paint out. This is ruby red. I always try to keep the tip of my nib like I would a paintbrush along the edge here, because then that helps me not go outside of the lines. That's why I'm always turning my paper. Now, I'm an outliner, so I'm actually going to go back in after I'm done and outline everything, so I don't mind too much if they're not completely touching the next area. I'm not pushing down very hard at all. Okay, I did this in sections just because I don't want to lose my lines. Everything will be colored in white first, but I'm just going to start with the little white sections first and then move from there. And I'm going to be using 4 different colors. I do really like the nib, the tip on this, the brush tip. Anytime I can buy and use a brush tip, I prefer. It glides on a lot easier. I do wish I would have thought about using Mod Podge as my base layer. I think this would have potentially gone a little smoother, but that's why I'm here, to try things, make the mistakes so you don't have to. As I'm working with this brush tip marker, I'm not pushing down really hard. The harder you push with those, kind of the broader your stroke will be, so that's just something to keep in mind. It doesn't release the ink like the Poscas do if you push down, since you're pushing at the back of the marker instead of the front in order to release the paint, so that doesn't seem to be a problem. I did a color combination here that maybe I wouldn't normally have done for the crystals. I end up liking how they turn out, but I think I might have overdone it on the colors. I'm not really sure, but I continue painting each thing white over the black so that it really makes things pop. And the thing I love about acrylics is, like right here, I don't like what I was doing, so I'm able to just paint right over it. With watercolors, I'm not able to do that. So that's one of the things I really do love about acrylic markers or acrylic paints, is that their opacity, so that I can fix things a lot more easily. And now I'm just going through and drawing in where I want the little sun rays to be with the white, and then I'm going to color over those with oranges and yellows. I think one of my favorite things about acrylics, paints, markers is their opacity and the ability to just fix things a lot more easily. I'm getting ready to show you the issue that I have with the SimTap. That's the end I was telling you about that broke off, and now I have to find something else to stick in there to get the paint to go to the tip of the marker. So it's quite frustrating and annoying that that happened. Hopefully nobody else has an issue like that. It's only happened with one of the markers, and I do quite like them, and they seem to be extremely popular here on YouTube. I'll probably end up buying another set at some point. One thing I've definitely found that I really enjoy with the acrylic markers is the ability to blend them with a brush so that you don't have such harsh lines if you don't want them. I think some of the beauty of using acrylic markers for coloring things in is kind of more the separation of the lights and darks, but I really enjoyed being able to have that option with the acrylic markers. I love Posca markers. I've been using those for a very long time, but I really do love the brush nib so much on the Artec SimTap markers, and the blendability of those is really beautiful. They probably are my favorite ones that I've used in this project. I just don't have very many colors, so that kind of limited the amount of ways that I could use it, and I actually ended up using colors that maybe I don't end up liking, but that is probably my favorite marker that I used during this entire process. Using the Posca pens for doodles and just kind of coloring over other things is what I'm used to doing, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm creating little stars, and I've been putting in little doodles with the black and the white Posca pens, and I'm just going to continue doing that for a little while. I love the vibrancy and the opacity of Posca pens. They're still going to be my favorite, I think. I wish that they had a brush nib. That would be fantastic. The glitter Posca pens are really fun. They're not as opaque. You can really see through them. That's what I'm using here. But they're really pretty, and I love like the little bit of extra pizzazz that using those gives. They're fun. So as I'm wrapping up this drawing, I just want to leave you with some big takeaways that I have for you, and it's really just to make sure you leave the lid on when you shake your markers, because you know the paint can splatter out if you shake it without the lid on. I always like to test my marker on a separate sheet of paper. I do that off to the side. You don't see that in camera, but just to make sure that the paint is already flowing and that it's ready to go. Plus, if the nib is dirty, I will find out on a piece of paper, not on my drawing. I've done that before and it's frustrating. So you want to make sure that your nibs are clean, and you want to use a light touch when you're using acrylic markers, especially the ones that pump from the tip of the marker. That way you're not going to release all that paint onto your picture, because again, we saw what can happen with that too. So you want to just be extra careful with that. And for cleaning your markers, you can actually use a damp cloth to clean the tip of it. That way it prevents the paint from drying or clogging it. And it also helps so that you don't transfer any debris or dirt or any other colors that might have gotten on that tip to your next drawing. That's a good idea to make sure that your markers are clean before you use them. Also, test the acrylic markers with other things. You can use them with other acrylic paints. You can use them with watercolors. You can use them with Pitt pens, colored pencils. I absolutely love mixed media. I love using several different mediums that contribute to creating layers and depth and complexity in my artwork. Let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in me creating a video where I use mixed media. It's one of my favorite things to do. The best way to learn how to use your supplies is to use your supplies, right? I've watched a ton of videos on how to use different things, but I never really learn 100% how to use something until I've used it for myself. So get in there and use the art supplies that you have, which brings me to the next thing. I will leave in the comments the supplies that I used in this video, but always just use what you have. You know, using what you have, you can learn, oh, hey, I really like this product quite a bit. And then you can buy more, you can upgrade to a little bit of a more expensive set, or, you know, maybe you end up not liking something, so you don't really want to invest more money if you don't need to. So keep that in mind as well. Don't feel like you have to keep up with the Joneses when it comes to art supplies. I'm putting Mod Podge on in order to protect it from like being in my bag, or so it just doesn't scrape off or anything. That also being said, I didn't end up loving how this turned out. It was a learning experience. I think I was trying to fit a circle in a square, where this might not have been the best application to really let these acrylic markers shine and see what they could do. Join me next week in my video where we will discuss what to do when you don't like a piece of artwork. Do you fix it? Do you start over? I really appreciate you being here and watching my videos. Be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.